We got a first glimpse of her impressive athleticism at the 1996 Summer Olympic Games in Atlanta, Georgia. She was only 14 years old. In the years since, this gifted swimmer went on to shatter numerous world records, and she collected 7 Olympic medals. And that's not all. In addition to being an extraordinary athlete, she's also known for her success in the modeling world. She's appeared in numerous magazines, including Sports Illustrated. But while everything may have looked perfect on the outside, Amanda Beard hid intense physical and emotional struggles from her family and friends for years. She battled depression and self-image issues. Always a champion, she fought back and is now happily married and the mother of 2 children. She chronicled her incredible journey in her memoir, In the Water, They Can't See You Cry. And Amanda Beard joins us now to talk about that journey. Welcome to Full Frame.
Thanks for having me.
First question, got to ask it right out of the gate. Am I really talking to Amanda Beard? Because one of the great pieces in your book is about how sick you got of doing interviews. Tell the story. It's hysterical.
Well, especially when you're younger. You know, I'm in high school. I'm like the high school kid. I don't want to do interviews. I want to be on the phone with my girlfriends gossiping. And so I'd always have all these interviews to do and things like that. And I just told my dad, I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. Well, my sisters sound just like me on the phone. So all of my phone interviews ended up being them most of the time because they knew all my answers because they sat there listening to me do it all the time. And they thought it was fun. They had a kick out of it.
And you point out that in some cases they were even better than you. I mean, these guys got great interviews, but they would be even more fluid with what they said.
Yeah, I mean, my sisters are 5 and 7 years older than me, so they probably sounded a little more mature, had a vocabulary a little bit more vast than I did. So where I would have been like, I don't know, I'm having fun. They'd actually have these really nice answers.
The fun parts, and there are a lot of them in the book, are sprinkled in with kind of the really kind of, there's tough stuff there. I mean, when I first picked it up and started reading it, it's difficult to get through the first couple of pages because you go right into the fact that you were into cutting. And in fact, the first part of the book is an episode. Tell the viewers about it. What happened because it went tragically wrong for you?
Yeah, I mean, I got really wrapped up in harming myself and self-harm and cutting, and it's unfortunately very, very common amongst kids of all ages. And it was my way of kind of healing myself, kind of dealing with my issues. And the opening kind of couple pages of my book, what you're talking about, is actually a part where I actually ended up cutting myself too deep, and it really freaked me out. And there was lots of blood, and it was very kind of it was a great moment because it really woke me up and told me, okay, look at what you're doing. You know, look around you, what's happening. Like, is this where you want to be in this kind of a situation? Is this who you are? Or is there something better out there for you? Can you be a happier, healthier person? And I knew it took a lot, obviously, to get that moment, and a lot after that moment, but really rattled my cage.
One of the great things that comes through in your book is how supportive and wonderful your family is. It must have been a shock to them because you concealed a lot of this, didn't you?
I did. I concealed everything. And the book even helped me even more kind of recover because it really let a lot of people into what I was going through in my life. And especially my sisters, you know, they want to know every little detail of what I'm going through and experiencing and feelings and things like that. And this was a way for me to really communicate with them as well. And we opened a lot of doors, and with my parents, opening doors to be able to have that really free communication. So that was a really nice bonus, putting the book out there.
Did they suspect along the way?
I think, you know, my mom is very in tune to things like that. And so I know she definitely could see a lot of changes going on with me and things that I was going through. I don't know if she knew exactly the depth of what I was going through. So she was always there, being very supportive, being more of like an emotional support system for me. Which later on I found out that she was doing all this on purpose. She knew, you know, that I was having a rough time and that I was battling something, but I didn't necessarily want to open up.
The power of a book like this, you can't question what it can do for others. And I mean, that's one of the things that's great about the ending is you have other coaches that come up and say things to you, other swimmers, young kids just breaking into this who are also starting to experience this sort of thing, and it kind of empowers them in a way, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I loved, especially when I went on my book tour, is really getting to meet some of my fans and some people who are not athletes, have nothing to do with the sports world whatsoever, and connecting with them on a whole different level. Not, oh, you're such a great swimmer, you know, I love watching you in the Olympics. It's like, this is my story. You have spoken exactly the words that I want to be able to say, but I'm not strong enough to say, and I'm feeling confident to be able to go and get help and to reach out, and that was the whole purpose of it, is to let people know that they're not alone, that it's silly for us to feel embarrassed about these things, that even like these tough athletes who stand behind the swimming blocks at the Olympics, who win gold medals, have issues. Like, we all have issues.
Well, the truly extraordinary thing is there's pictures in here, and I was flying out here from Washington, D.C., and there's a picture of you and your then boyfriend at the time, and I showed it to my wife, and I said, what do you think? She said, oh my God, these two are gorgeous. But yet you and he had the same problem, had this terrible self-image, and you talk about how fat you are and all of this sort of thing. And anybody from the outside looking at that would say, oh my God, so
I know,
what's that all about?
Isn't it so sad? We are so awful to ourselves. We're so negative. We really just don't appreciate the things that we have until maybe we lose them. And hopefully we can figure out how to shake that before something like that happens. And yeah, I mean, from the outside looking in, you know, you see this couple and they look gorgeous and happy and they have everything going for them, but it wasn't like that at all. And so I think it really helps me not be judgmental about other people and be understanding about maybe the way that they're feeling about themselves. And it's also something for me to like wake myself up and look at myself in the mirror every morning and know how I look and my weight and how my hairdo is and all this stuff is really not that important. You know, I have 2 young kids, and when I look at their faces, if they're happy and healthy, that is the best thing in my life. That is what I'm here to do, is be a mom and be the best mom to these 2 kids, and then, you know, tell them my story too.
Grappling with depression when Robin Williams committed suicide, I'm sure you must view that differently than perhaps some other people who haven't struggled with depression. What were your thoughts when you heard the story?
Well, it definitely touched me. I love Robin Williams. I think, as you know, millions upon millions of other people do, and it affected all of us in a very deep, like, emotional way, because he made you laugh, and you always saw this really wonderful human on cameras with a smile and just bringing so much joy. But you have no idea what he's dealing with, his inner demons and the things. And I felt the exact same way a lot of the times, where I would, do interviews and have this happy face and talk about how everything's great and having so much fun. And then I would go home and I would be the exact opposite person. I would be miserable. I would hate myself. I'd have this negative loop running through my head. I would just think I was the most awful person that walked this planet. So it was one of those situations where you look at someone like Robin Williams and you think, man, this guy has it all. He's amazing. We all love him. But he wasn't feeling that. And that's where the whole depression comes in. It's very difficult to understand, and it's hard to reach out because people think, but your life is so great.
Well, maybe I'd like you to kind of talk about this. It's one thing to go through, we all go through adversity in our lives and troubles. But it's another to go through, the fame, the fortune, rocket up, win all these medals. And then in your case, as you point out in the book, there were times where, your body's changing, you're not swimming as well. So the ups and the downs, it's all there for the world to see, And obviously with Robin Williams, the same case, he had troubles with alcohol and depression, and everybody knew about it. Does that make it harder? Do you think you're more susceptible to depression because you're on the world stage in a sense, or?
Maybe. I think you definitely feel like you have to put up more of an act, more of a front, and you're not being very true to yourself. Whereas if you weren't doing interviews or doing magazine, photo shoots and things like that, where you could maybe be more realistic with the things that you're feeling and going on throughout your life. Whereas I never really felt like I should share those things with especially young athletes, because I didn't want to have this negativity put out there, or I didn't want people to think that I was weak. I wanted them to look at me and think, okay, she can handle all of this. She's a strong athlete, and just kind of toughen up and work through things. But it's not the case, and that's not realistic. And now I realize I don't want young athletes to think that way. I want them to be realistic with life and understand that life is an emotional roller coaster. I mean, it really is.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the emotional roller coaster, because you definitely were on one. 4 Olympic Games, which is, I mean, I don't know how many women have actually achieved that. Not very many.
Not too many.
Yeah.
No, a couple.
Yeah, you're in a rare field there.
Yeah.
It seemed to me Beijing was your last, and one you kind of enjoyed, even though the outcome wasn't all that great.
Yeah, you know, obviously you always want to go to the Olympics and you want to bring home gold medals and you want all of that greatness. But Beijing was so much fun. I had a great support system there. Great friends flew out to China to watch. My now husband was there. I raced my little heart out. It was not, you know, it wasn't the best race of my life. It was nothing amazing, but I had a lot of fun and I cried a couple tears, which I think, you know, you train for 4 years for that moment. But then I shaked it all off and I stood behind my teammates and cheered them on and, you know, watched Michael Phelps do amazing things. And then I enjoyed China. I went out and experienced being in a different country and just, I really try to soak in the moment. The Olympics are so special and some people's dreams are to make it to the Olympics. Like, you know, to be there in that moment, that's amazing.
I think it's great. Your husband comes out as a real hero in this book, but I think you came in 18th, and he said, "You're the 18th greatest swimmer in the world. What are you talking about? This is fantastic."
I know.
Which, you know, it's so funny because a swimmer, I think, wants that medal. 18 doesn't count, but
Yeah.
he's absolutely right. I mean, when you look at the planet at that point in time, you're obviously in a class that many people aren't in.
I've had to have that same conversation with teammates of mine where they've come in 4th place and they miss a medal, and I'm like, but you're 4th in the world. And we don't celebrate 4th or 18th the same way that we do for 2nd and 3rd. But when my husband had to have that same conversation with me, like, hello, 18th in the world. Like, imagine if I was 18th in the world in anything else in my life, I would probably be like, I am the coolest person ever. But because it's swimming and I invest so much time in it, I nitpick every little detail about it. So I'm a little more harsh on myself.
As you look back at the moments, and there's a lot of great ones in here. I mean, one, you start out at in the last possible spot, and you don't have the great spot, and
Yeah.
you hear the crowd. Talk to me about that race and the significance of that, because beforehand your coach said to you, just get in there and give it your all, have fun.
Yeah.
And that was really kind of the inspiration for you, huh?
Yeah, you know what? I think it's one of those moments where you get so stressed and so wrapped up in the moment and what's going on that you forget to just relax and have fun. And I had to remind myself that, okay, I'm standing behind this block and I'm about to dive into this pool. Tomorrow I might not be able to do this. I have no idea what my future has in store for me. So I need to honestly really be in this moment, have fun, and make memories. My coach always told me, like, leave it all in the pool. When you get out of the pool, no, that's all you had to give. Walk away and be like, that's what I got, that's what I had, and be happy with it.
One final question. When you look at all the medals you've won, and then what you've done with this book, you know, obviously touching a lot of girls out there and the parents, you know, it's basically laying raw what happens with a lot of young girls growing up. How do you measure the two?
Ooh, that's a good one. Well, I think, you know, obviously swimming, I'm in the water every single day, putting a lot of time into my training. So that's a very important thing for me. But at the end of the day, if I've reached more people through my book and through my honesty, that's more rewarding to me, to be able to maybe open lines of communications between, you know, friends or parents and their children, or just allow, you know, young athletes to know that they're not alone through whatever they're going through. I think that is more important than, you know, a bunch of medals. Medals are cool, but touching people's lives is way more important.
Amanda, thanks so much. It's been great fun.
Thank you for having me.
When we come back, why is there so much stigma surrounding the discussion of mental health issues?